Good to be here with you all. I just noticed Senator Guillory, former Senator Guillory, up on the board here. What a patriot! I mean, this guy is fantastic. He and I had the pleasure to serve together, and we always matched up vote-wise. Everything he voted for, I voted for, and so on. But I served 8 years in the House. I fell off the deep end in the year 2000. I wasn't looking to run for office. I was just a regular guy, minding my own business, literally. And some people came to me and said, "We need somebody like you to run for office." I said, "What office?" "State representative." "Where is that at?" "Capitol." What exit do you take to get to the Capitol?" I didn't even know. But long story short, I got into the race and I ran on family value issues that seem to have gotten away from us here in the United States over the years. And of course I won and served 2 terms in the House. And about near the end of each term, people would ask me, "You're going to run again? You're going to run again?" Because, we have 3 terms. I said, "I don't know. I have to ask the boss. I have to get with the boss. I have to ask the boss." And of course, they think I'm talking about my wife, Linda, who she and I have been married 102 years. 51 for her, 51 for me. August the 11th at 2 p.m. Impressive, right, ladies? I know the time, not just the day. But I decided after 2 terms and carrying the family values banner and issue for those two terms that, the Lord had me, directed it in another location. Little did I know it was going to be in the Senate. About that time, Walter Blassa, if you recall, ran for governor against Bobby Jindal and left the Senate District 1 seat open. And of course, there were 2 or 3 very qualified people in that race. And after much prayerful consideration and directions from the real boss, it was decided that I should enter that race. Whenever we pray about these things, it's not that we pray for victory. We just pray for God's will, and if victory comes, amen, and that could be a blessing, it could be not a blessing, but at any rate, we won, and I served 8 more years in the Senate. Could have served a 3rd term, but I really felt like my time was up. I'm just a regular guy. AG stands for average guy, and for my Christian friends, Amazing Grace. But just to make sure you don't get me mixed up with an Italian, AJ, Anthony Joseph, this kind of thing. I've got a French name, and I won't tell you that because you'll tell somebody else. But anyway, it's good to be here, and over the years, as I served in the legislature, I cannot forget the very first vote that I took. And if you all remember people like Pepe Bruno and Lancaster, very, very prominent Republicans, and they were the guys that used to say that we could get all the Republicans in the legislature at that time, in the legislature, into a phone booth. Y'all remember that? Well, because of them and people after them, we now have had, for quite some time now, the majority of the House and the Senate Republican. And unfortunately, we had 8 years of a governor that wasn't like-minded, but we still managed to get a lot of things done. Now, with this new governor, Jeff Landry, who's a close friend, good guy, we're looking at some major changes coming up in the near horizon with an overhaul of the tax system. And for anybody looking at or hearing discussion about constitutional convention, after being there for 16 years, I can tell you that we really don't need a constitutional convention. What we really need to do, instead of opening up a whole can of worms, if you will, is a convention that focuses just on one issue, and that's the fiscal issue, the way we're taxed. 75% of the budget, ever since I was there, and still today, maybe even a little bit more, is mandated by the Constitution as a result of continuous votes of the people, as a result of legislators introducing constitutional amendments over the years, so that most of the funding, most of our budget is tied up, and we can't do much with it. And so that's why we have not enough money in some areas. Every dollar we don't spend in health care, we lose $3 at the federal level. So I refer to it as fiscal deficit disorder, and if it's ever going to be fixed, I think we have our best chance of having that happen with the governor that we have now, Jeff Landry, and with a majority of the House and of the Senate. So I think we're in pretty good shape, as far as infrastructure and having all the people in the right places. Louisiana has continuously, well, let me back up a little bit and tell you about my first vote. And this is what was instilled to me by those earlier guys that I mentioned a few minutes ago. The very first vote, I was on the Commerce Committee, and there were 15 legislators, and it was a family values issues vote. And so when it's a vote like that, it really is an easy vote for me, you know, and I always ask the question, well, what would God want me to do? You know, what would God want me to do? This particular bill was one of the first ones. It's about a 55-page bill, and it was expansion of some kind of issue that was basically anti-family values. But it came before the Commerce Committee, and I was my very first committee, sitting next to a guy who's now the district attorney up in the Walls Parish. His name is Charlie Riddle. He'd been there maybe about 10 years or so. And so whenever the bill came up, it was about an hour's worth of testimony from the public, and they all talked about in support of the bill. And I'm thinking all along, I'm not going to vote for this, but I listened to it. And so when the time came to vote, the chairman grabbed his gavel and said, any more questions from the panel, any more questions from the audience? Here not, I move that we pass this bill without objection. And I said, I object. And all of a sudden, 200 people in this room, Committee Room 1, if you're all familiar with it, you can hear a pin drop. Who is it? Why is he objecting? Nobody said anything about this bill. Why is he raising? Why is he doing that? Well, he's new. You know, he doesn't know what he's doing. What's going on? And so the chairman then said, with a disturbed attitude in his voice, since Representative Crowe objected, we have to have a roll call vote. Well, I didn't realize, you know, what's the difference between a verbal roll call vote versus just a routine vote where nobody's on a record? Well, because of our efforts, everything in the Capitol, every committee meeting in the House and the Senate are all now recorded and archived and will be for many, many years to come. And it's because we need transparency, and that's what we pushed for, and we got it back then. Well, as it turns out, he calls the roll, and there were 14 yeas and 1 nay. And then guess who? And so about an hour passed, and then we adjourned. And just as I was getting up and gathering myself to get going to the next committee meeting, Charlie Riddle, the attorney, now the district attorney now from Walls Parish, been there 10 years, came over to me, and I read, by the way, there's a bio section, a little book that y'all seen at the Capitol where you can get all the legislators in the House and Senate. It's got a little 1-2 paragraph sentence about the bios and so on. Well, I knew a lot of these guys were deacons in their churches, and they were Sunday school teachers and members of this religion and members of that religion, but they didn't vote that way. They didn't stand their ground. They didn't stand their ground with God or Christians wanted to do. Not that I was being judgmental, I just noticed that. And so as we were getting ready to leave, Charlie came over to me, put his arm around me, and he said, man, I know you're new here. I owe you a big apology. I said, what do you mean, Charlie? He said, I've been here 10 years, you know, I believe the same way you did. I shouldn't have let you all alone. You're new here, and, you know, I really apologize for that. I said, well, Charlie, first off, I wasn't alone. God was with me. And let me tell you, folks, if you're the only vote and God's on your side, you're automatically in the majority. Automatically in the majority. And I told him that. And I said, Charlie, look, this is the first of a 4-year term. You got plenty of time to get it right. Just follow my lead. Here I am, a freshman legislator. He's been there 10 years. He's going to start following my lead. Well, that just carried on and carried on and carried on. And at the end of the session, Tony Perkins, y'all know the guy?
Yeah.
Tony Perkins, the head of the Family Research Council. I ran into him last week at the Louisiana Family Forum in Baton Rouge, where they have the annual legislative scorecard convention. And Tony was my first seatmate. And at the end of the session, the ACLU, you've heard of them, they probably have a picture of me and Tony in their office with a dart board, you know, just kind of going at it. Anyway, Tony and I got the scorecard from the 10 bills that they were tracking that session, and we got 10 out of 100. We were so disappointed, we wanted the 0. You know, what happened? Where did we go wrong, Tony? We wanted the 0 on the ACLU scorecard, not 10. Well, anyway, we kept reading this question over and over again, and you know, Tony, he and I both agreed, well, they did it all right. Did we actually agree on one thing? And there are times that happens. But then Tony said, leaving a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So, you know, they'll get it right sometimes. But the tax system in the state of Louisiana is something that needs to be tackled. That's something that needs to be addressed. William mentioned that I have businesses. Well, during the time I was in the legislature, I started a business called the File Depot, and it was a record storage company in Slidell that grew from 2,000 square feet to 15 locations by franchising in about 15 different states. Well, actually 30 locations now, 15 states. And as it grew, I was in the House and in the Senate, and I did the best I can do to, debate bills and make decisions on my business. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's supposed to be a part-time job, but it really isn't. If you're really in there dedicated. And of course, all this time we had the Vote Home program going on. Y'all remember that? My House district and certainly my Senate district was where the eye went over all four of the parishes that I represented. So we stayed busy with that as well. But I sold the business after and retired, and 2 weeks later I felt like, well, maybe my wife was right. She's a retired kindergarten teacher, and she said retirement to me is like going to the Goodyear store. The Goodyear store getting 4 new tires, retired. And but she also said as a kindergarten teacher that I have something called managed attention deficit. It's beyond the type A personality. It's like an ADD kid in kindergarten, but you get things done. And that's the big difference. She was actually trying to make a point, which she did, but telling me that, I've been, successful doing this now or whatever, but I get things done. I like to stay busy. And that's probably why I'm here today, And she said, it's not a bad thing. Manage attention deficit, you can look back and say you helped this, you did this, you helped that, started this business, but remember one thing. I said, what? She said the acronym is MAD. If you don't slow down, you're going to go mad. And I said, for someone who never got out of kindergarten, you're a pretty good, pretty smart girl. Well, we're still married 102 years. So we're happy. But at any rate, today, as a result of the last business, about 2 weeks later, I started a publishing company where we actually promote the small and local businesses that started in Slidell. Now it's in, I think, 2 states. 2 states and soon to be 3 states. And that's called Shop Local USA if you want to look it up. Small businesses, especially through the COVID time when the government then was trying to shut everybody down, including our churches. I think we were going to try to have a church service in Walmart Garden Center one Sunday because they were open and the church wasn't, right? But during that time, many businesses went by the wayside. Many businesses just couldn't keep their doors open. And they're still feeling it even today, and it's after COVID, simply because of the fact that they can't get people. During that time, our federal government decided we're going to give everybody everything, for nothing, for not earning it. And that's not what we believe. That's not how I was raised. You earn what you get. But because people have gotten so many gifts during this time, they felt like, well, $15 an hour is not enough anymore. $20 an hour might do it, and then I'll go to work. But they were conditioned into staying home and not working, and I think that was another one of those things after COVID that's still kind of sticking with it. Today, restaurants are busy, but they can't get help. They can't get people to work, and that's happening everywhere in Louisiana, probably other states as well. But we're doing this project, and it's been very, very successful. You do get a chance to shop usa.com. And I guess it was about 3 years ago, we teamed up with a scientist and a physician and started yet another business talking about MAD, multiple attention deficit. I'm not happy unless I'm busy. It's beyond the type A. There are probably a lot of people that have that condition. You're looking at one of them that does. The company's called Malady. Malady stands for, it's an old-fashioned word for injury or sickness. Malady.co is the website. And what COVID left in its place was some stark reality. Everybody sitting here in this room, whether you had COVID, you may have had it, you didn't know it because 33% of people are asymptomatic, right? That's what we were told. Whether or not you had it, or if you did have COVID and you're still alive, praise God. But for the people, most of the people, and I would say the mid-90% of the people that died from COVID did not die from COVID. They died from some other asymptomatic underlying disease they had no clue about. And so as we talked about this phenomenon, and nobody was, you wouldn't see it, hear about it in the news, with doctors, partners and friends of mine, and with scientists and so on, it was another one of those things that needed addressing. That led us to the realization that we don't really have a healthcare system in the U.S. And all of this is leading up to a company called Maga that we created. We started about 3.5 years ago. We don't have a healthcare system in the U.S. We have a sick care system. And it's out of control at the federal level from a budget standpoint, and the trillions, and it's continuing on. We met with some folks in Washington, D.C. in January this year with some health advisors, health policy advisors, and even though back in 2010 federal legislation was passed in order to be able to offset or slow down this out-of-control spending on health care, it hasn't really helped a whole lot. And most businesses don't even know that there are incentives in place now where your employees can actually get free preventive health care services at no cost to that business. And that's the next thing coming up in the rise. That's what we're involved in with Melody.co. So if you're a business owner and you want to know how you can get your employees covered with health insurance, supplemental health insurance, that would cover it at no cost. It comes out of your FICA tax. So send FICA to the federal government, you basically hold it back with a third-party administrator, and that covers the cost of preventive care and a whole slew of services that you can get for your employees. No cost to the employee, no cost to the employer. And that's the best kept secret right now in terms of health care. We're very much in tune with that federal policy. If anybody needs to know any more about that, how you can take advantage of it, just let me know. I'll leave you my card. I think I have some cards here now. But we have a sick care system, and the reason I call it a sick care system is because we're all programmed not to go to the doctor or go to the hospital or the urgent care unless what happens. We don't feel good, have an accident, heart attack, whatever, broke a leg. We're conditioned. And then we think, well, I'm covered by insurance anyway, but it's a little after the fact in most cases. And it's worse whenever you go to a doctor for, let's say, a tummy ache or a headache or dizziness or whatever, and the first thing they tell you in the waiting room, with the nurse, they'll go over all your meds. Are you taking this still? Are you taking that still? And if you can remember all that stuff, and sometimes you can't because some people are a little over the edge, from an age standpoint, then you're lucky if you do and you convey that information, because then the doctor comes in a few minutes later and he says, I see here you're still taking Allopurinol or whatever, yeah, I forgot, there's another one to take too. Most people, 65, 70, they can't even pronounce the name of some of these prescriptions, let alone remember what they're taking. But all of that to me to this point, they're not going to talk about on that doctor's visit. You're not going to talk about anything except what you feel. So if you have something asymptomatic that you have no pain about, you have no clue what's going on in your body. And by the way, 80% of us in this room have something right now that you probably didn't even know about. Pancreatic cancer doesn't show up the symptoms until about the third or fourth stage. If you catch it early, or if your PSA numbers are low or start to spike and you don't check them, and there's no process in place that's going to do it automatically, and if the doctor doesn't think about it and you don't think about it, it ain't going to happen. And you're going to wind up like a cousin of mine on the North Shore who's now in his last days of, he could have caught this thing a year ago. But what is the solution? What does Maga bring to the table? And I'll end it all up by saying this. The scientists, the doctors, our team members put together what we call a comprehensive wellness profile. It is a preventive care blood test. Yeah, some of us are afraid of needles, and I'm one of those guys too. But you go get a blood test. You can actually go to the website, Melody.co. Get the blood test. Within about a week, 7 days, you get the results back. We, by the way, have phlebotomists all over the nation. So anywhere in the USA, if you want to get this test, it's 135 biomarkers in your blood system. 135. It's unheard of. If you were to go to LabCorp Quest to get this, it would take probably 6 months and numbers of tubes of blood and draws. And it would be over $2,300. We've done all the research. We wanted to make this, because it's not covered by insurance for the most part, affordable for anybody out there. $540 is what the cost is for one blood draw at your home, at your office. There's no waiting, taking a day off or whatever. So if you're interested in knowing your health, Melody.co is that. And we're launching nationwide. We started again in Slidell and Mandeville, Louisiana. And we're hoping to change a paradigm shift, if you will, from the sick care system to a welfare system, but you also have to go one step further and think about self-care. Doctors today are so frustrated and so pressured that when you go in there, some of you have been to the doctor recently, when you go in there, you feel rushed. You don't have those conversations like you used to have. You know, you feel rushed. They feel rushed. Every test that they recommend has to have a report that they have to fill out, which takes time. Doctors don't like that because they don't. And so they're routinely pushed through this process, and the end result is we, supposedly the most advanced country in the world, is now probably number 15 in terms of health care because of our system, the way it's set up now. So the end result is, in the first step, as I wrap up and close, is that there is a solution. The best thing that you can do for your loved ones is to be there for them, and the best way to be there for them is to take care of your health. And the best way to take care of your health is to know your health. And you're not going to get it just by going to the doctor when you're sick or when something bad happens. You have to step up. You don't even have to go to the doctor to get an RX. Go to the website, sign up, and within a short amount of time, anywhere in the USA, if you've got a cousin that lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we'll send a phlebotomist there. And to their home, to their office, or whatever, and within about 7 days they'll have the results. From there, we recommend you send them to your physician. And it may take 2 months to see the doctor, which is crazy, but follow up with your physician, let him go over all of the different various biomarkers, because believe me, you know, it's well worth it. It's your life. I mean, and it's certainly something that I would highly recommend. So that's our two businesses that I'm involved in, and I'll be in Dallas next Thursday and Friday with a roundtable of our group of about our team is about 7, and they're all over the country, and strategizing how we can roll this out even on a faster basis to as many people as possible. But you all are getting sort of a preview of what's coming. But MALAD.co is the website, and hopefully Louisiana can not only lead other states in family values legislation, but we can also lead other states in better health care outcomes. And hopefully this will be one of those areas. And the single, by the way, largest budget factor in our budget is health care in Louisiana. We share a lot of this information with the Department of Health in Baton Rouge and with the governor's people, and we'll share with them as well more information. So as I used to say, behind the podium in the Senate, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'll just say one last thing. There was a guy named J.P. Morrell. Y'all heard of him. I don't know if he's got any friends in here, but to me, he's a crazy Democrat. J.P. is a very, very intelligent, very astute guy, very knowledgeable, very intelligent guy, but he's just not, you know, based in good Republican principles. JP is now on city council at large in New Orleans. You may know him, you may see him on TV and everything. But he and I, we used to go head to head all the time. And at the beginning of the second term in the Senate, JP lived in the Pentagon Apartments above me, and I moved to the front to a single bedroom. He moved down to my old apartment. And I guess it was about a week after inauguration of the second term, I ran into JP at the Capitol and said, "Hey, JP, how do you like your new apartment?" He was hesitant at first, and he said, okay, I guess. I said, "What do you mean?" He, "Well, you know, at night, you know, when I'm getting ready to go to bed, you know, the lights are all out, I'm getting ready to fall asleep, I hear strange noises." I said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. It's haunted by Republican ghosts." I said, "If you listen real carefully, you'll hear him say, no more taxes, marriage, one man, one woman, and don't kill the babies." He didn't think that was very funny. And it is not funny. It's serious, folks. And we have a chance. And you said it, if we get the Christians out to vote, we got this one. And look, no matter what happens, we have to always remember that we have to keep fighting, even if Trump does not get elected. Because why? It's our responsibility, our duty as Christians, as Americans. And God has our back. He always will have our back. So thank you for this time to be able to share. I don't hope it is.
AG, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. You're all good, aren't you?
Amazing Grace.
Yeah, I love Amazing Grace. I love it. You were going to hear Amazing Grace from Lorraine Lamont tomorrow. Lorraine Lamont is doing a church service tomorrow in the morning, and she'll be singing Amazing Grace. Lorraine Lamon's going to open up our second half tonight after we get served some food with not only the Star Spangled Banner, but she's going to sing God Bless America. It's going to be a really good night tonight. As in food tonight is supplied by Quarter View, so please, give them some business when you get the opportunity. And as you heard from AG, not many people think about medical freedom, how much medical freedom is under attack. And when you start looking at medical freedom being under attack, your eyes start to open up on